All right, it is time to get some information about your legal circumstances that you're in. John Fuller is here to answer your questions about those circumstances. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. Maybe it's a car accident and you just want to make sure that you are whole again. That's kind of the way the attorneys put it. And John is an attorney. He's here to answer your questions. The program is called Legally Yours, and this is Wednesday, December 3rd, 2014. I tell you the date so that you know whether it's a good idea to call in or not, because if you're not here, then it's not a good idea. Wednesday, December 3rd, 2014. If that's the same day, did I say it right? Did I say it right? If that's the same date on your calendar, then you have a live show. The number is 622-9622. Good morning, John. How are you?
Good morning, Larry, and good morning to all our listeners. And we hope that everyone had a very happy Thanksgiving and were able to enjoy it and arrive at their destination safely and return safely if they were traveling. I know that seemed like the whole world was on I-75 at one time.
I bet it did, yeah.
But the holiday season seems to be getting in full swing, and we wish everyone happiness during this period of time, and always, but certainly during the holiday season when you stop and think, maybe reflect on the blessings we all have.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're hurt on while you're traveling and it's not your vehicle, let's say you're on a cruise ship or an airplane or whatever, a train, do you have if you filed the lawsuit after the fact, where would you actually take that lawsuit to?
Huge. That's a major complex question that
Really?
cannot be answered in general terms. If you're on a cruise ship, admiralty law kicks in, and that is one of those very specialized areas, and it is not something that I practice in. We don't have any oceans or anything right around Ocala, so you don't see a lot of admiralty cases. The jurisdiction of the port of departure may be the place where it could be brought if the accident happens before the ship gets out of the territorial waters of the United States. If the ship is in international water, then it is dependent and sometimes upon where the ship's registry is, which is why you'll see a lot of those cruise ships out of Florida that are registered in Panama or all those kind of places. I'm not able to answer it. I had one somewhat, I think it was a fairly serious case that involved an injury on a cruise ship in international waters, and I referred it to an admiralty lawyer down in Miami to handle it. And my client's daughter had been assaulted by one of the crew members.
Oh, no.
And who had also, she was 15 years old and had transferred a sexually transmissible disease to this 15-year-old young lady.
Wow.
And they were taking a family vacation to try to bring the family together because the father and husband had terminal cancer and died in his 40s after a long-suffering cancer battle. And it was a horrific set of facts. And I sent them to the admiralty lawyer, who informed me that on the high seas, the age of consent is 15. Now, that was 25 or 30 years ago, so I profess no knowledge. I'm not anybody who handles admiralty, but I know that jurisdiction and the laws that apply in maritime issues are extremely complex and convoluted, and if anybody has something like that, they need to go to a city where they have a port, Jacksonville, Miami, where they have a lot of maritime lawyers.
Wow, that is a horrible story.
It is a horrific story, Larry. My heart bled for for everybody.
Wow.
And I wrote the owner of the cruise line a blistering letter, and they wrote back and said that the crew member was no longer had been terminated,
Wow.
and they had taken certain steps to, all without admitting any liability or whatever, this, that, and the other stuff. And bottom line, she never got a dime.
Wow. So what if you weren't on the seas, though? What if you were on a train in Virginia?
Well, if you're injured, usually, and again, there are exceptions to this, interstate commerce issues, diversity of citizenship issues, a whole variety of complex technical legal things that interplay. But generally, if you're injured in an accident, you would file the lawsuit in the state where the accident occurred.
If you want to speak to John, call now, because this is a great time since we've got a full 19 minutes left. John will be able to answer your question completely and comprehensively. I guess that's kind of redundant there. The number is 622-9622. A legal situation you might be in or somebody you know.
Just an important thing while the question I know came about with some unique components that we've talked about generally that are not the norm. But the norm, if someone's in Florida, they're operating a motor vehicle, or they're a passenger in a motor vehicle. If you're hurt, the first thing you need to do is to get medical attention. Because you only have 14 days to get to a medical doctor. Yeah. A chiropractor is not going to be satisfactory. A massage therapist, an acupuncturist, a naturopath, those don't qualify under the new law, which is now about 2 years old. But you will lose valuable insurance rights if you don't get to a medical doctor, a physician's assistant, a nurse practitioner, or a doctor of osteopathic medicine within 14 days of the accident. You need to do that. Secondly, you should not make any statements to anybody except your own insurance carrier. You should consult with a lawyer of your choice, and we'd be happy to talk with you if you found yourself in those circumstances. Yes, I know we have a call.
Yes, sir. Good morning. You're on the air with John Fuller.
Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
Had a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. I did. Thank you for that. I hope you did too.
Fairly decent. Had little ups and downs, but I survived it.
Well, that's a blessing. It's good to hear from you.
Yeah, same here. Let me ask you a question. Has there been any change in the last legislative session in regards to so-called mechanical liens?
I really don't know. I don't handle lien law matters. I am not aware. I check the what they call the session laws. These are the things that the legislature has working its way through, and I check those, and then I go to a number of seminars after the legislative session is over. They usually have them in January when they have had a chance to get all the laws printed in their final form, because once the legislature passes it, it goes to the governor, and he has a certain period of time before he either signs it, doesn't sign it, or veto it. So by the time they finish all that and get everything printed, I haven't seen anything in that stood out in any of the services that I subscribe to about laws, but I focus on what the legislature has done in statutes that affect business and commercial litigation, automobile accidents or premises liability or negligence type cases, and family law for complex family law cases, which I do a limited number of. So I can't tell you with absolute certainty whether or not the legislature modified the lien law or not.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you for calling.
The phone number to call right now is 622-9622. Again, John Fuller is here to answer your legal questions. The date today is December 3rd, just so you know that you're listening to a live show or not. And we do have to take a little break for the weather, and we'll be right back with John when we come back. If you call right now, you'll be on hold just about a minute and a half. The number again, 622-9622. We'll be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. It'll be partly sunny today, but there can be a shower in the area, mainly along the coast. The high 76 to 80. And clear to partly cloudy tonight, lows ranging from the upper 50s in a few inland locations to 66 along the coast. Sunshine mixing with clouds tomorrow. There may be an afternoon shower along the coast. The high 76 to 80. On Friday, partly sunny, maybe a shower along the coast. High 76 to 80. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
look who just walked in the room. Joel Wiesner from What's Up Ocala. Hey, Joel, I'm looking for something to do this weekend. You got any ideas?
Absolutely. Check out our event calendar online at www.whatsupocala.com, and there is plenty of events there for you. Daily news updates to event reviews and magazine articles.
Really?
We've organized it all in one place online for you to cut through all of the hassle of finding something to do this weekend. We have a daily event calendar, a bi-monthly magazine, and we also do daily news articles.
All right, Joel, that's perfect. Thanks so much.
Yeah, whatsupocala.com.
Here's what you may have missed on the John Tesh Radio Show.
We can easily get tempted into making an impulse buy in a short aisle. Get what's on your list and don't pay attention to an aisle's length. A bout of the flu can quadruple the odds of having a heart attack. That's because the flu virus inflames arteries, and being dehydrated makes things worse because it makes blood stickier and more likely to clot. You know, one of the best ways to increase productivity and get things done faster is to put your iPod on shuffle.
Intelligence for your life on the John Tesh Radio Show. Don't miss this stuff.
All right, 14 minutes before 11 o'clock, let's return to John Fuller, Legally Yours. And the phone number to call John is 622-9622. John, real quickly, mention what your phone number is at your office.
The office number is 352-547-4292. And we also have a toll-free number, 855-534-2565. And if you do have a case where you or a loved one or friend have been injured, we'll be happy to schedule you an appointment. If you are unable because you're in the hospital or in a rehabilitation hospital after an accident, we will be happy to go to your hospital or rehabilitation facility and talk to you there. We've had 2 of those cases in the last month where people were very severely injured, and we met with them and the family in the hospital.
And you have another phone call.
Okay.
Good morning. Thank you for calling. You're on the air with John Fuller.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Very good, thank you. We've come across a very troubling situation of friends of ours that are out of state here, but it was a woman. She's a divorced woman, and she's in her middle to late 40s. She has 4 children, and she was in a severe automobile accident and had brain damage, and she's incoherent right now. They don't think she's going to probably make it. The kids are feuding over a will that she had not made yet. What can happen in a situation? Should you get a lawyer to set that up, or if the kids can't get along, or how would you handle that?
First of all, if she was injured in an accident and has the serious type injuries you described, most assuredly someone needs to contact a lawyer to see whether or not this injury was caused by the negligence of some other party, and that should be priority number 1. And you know, if heirs or having disputes, obviously one lawyer could not represent all 4 of the quarreling heirs, because there would be a conflict of interest of taking more than one person's side in an argument of that nature. And I don't know what the issues that they are arguing about, but certainly it would seem to me that the most important thing would be to see if the person who's been seriously injured was the result of a negligent act of some other party, and to be sure and put that party and their liability insurance carrier on notice. So someone, if the person is brain impaired, there may need to be a guardianship established. And yes, you do need a lawyer for that. And if somebody is so injured in an accident that they have had severe head injury, so that they are no longer conscious or cognitively intact, certainly you want to find out, is there somebody responsible for that ought to be paying or contributing to the payment of medical bills and a loss of enjoyment of life and lost income and all of those elements. So someone on behalf of the injured person I assume that person does not have a spouse. A spouse would be the logical one to do it. If not a spouse, then one of the children, and that is what should take place.
Would age have anything to do with it, like the eldest child?
No, sir. The statute says that in order to be appointed a guardian, or if the person has passed away and it's a personal representative and they don't have a will that names a personal representative, the priorities are to look first to the surviving spouse if there is one. If there isn't one, then look to lineal descendants, which are the category of your children, and it does not specify eldest child versus a youngest child. It's which of the, and if there's a dispute, then it's probably the court would determine who is the individual who would most likely be motivated and capable of fulfilling the fiduciary duty to the decedent and his estate or her estate.
Yeah.
And it may be that the court would determine that if the children are so at war with each other that none of them would be the best choice to look after the decedent's estate, and that's the most critical thing.
Yeah.
And if that's not the case, then the court could appoint a bank or some other individual if it concludes that the children are not competent. It could look to a grandchild if the grandchild's an adult, but hopefully that won't happen, because it's been my experience in circumstances like that is that no one wins.
Yeah, well, it was a terrible situation. It was a single car accident. She lost control of the cars. I think that they think she fell asleep at night, hit a bridge embankment, and so there was nobody else involved. But what you're saying, though, is if these kids can't get together and get a lawyer before she passes on, and there's a good chance that she's not going to make it, the state takes over, and they're going to be in the loss for that, huh?
Well, the state doesn't take over. There would have to be a administration of the decedent's probate, and somebody has to initiate that, and the court has to approve the appointment of the personal representative, and there has to be notice given to the other interested parties, which are any of the other heirs, beneficiaries, or claimants who have claims for bills, like hospital bills and things like that. Everybody has to receive notice, and if they have an objection to the individual being appointed as personal representative, then they have a hearing on it, and the judge takes evidence, and then the judge decides, and it's in his discretion.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for calling.
So is in some of the big cases you hear about where there's a murder and they're acquitted and then there's a civil lawsuit, can the same thing happen like with a car accident? Can that go to court and then maybe you lose, but you can still file a civil lawsuit?
Well, there's a statute that says that if a person is charged with murder and is acquitted, there is not a cause of action for wrongful death unless there was some other theory like negligence, okay? But murder is an intentional act, okay? So, the children wouldn't have, say one spouse killed another spouse, the other spouse,
right?
And and inherited everything because property was jointly owned. So the children, I had a case like this, and it went to trial. And interesting question under Florida law, because if you are charged with murder and you're acquitted of murder, then there is no lawsuit where the heirs can get damages for the death of the other party, okay? If, and in this case, the individual was charged with murder, had a jury trial, they had a hung jury. They couldn't reach a verdict.
Oh, wow.
So he was never adjudicated guilty of murder. Before they retried that, there was a plea bargain, and he pled no contest, which means it's not admissible in a civil action, to the lesser included offense of manslaughter, and had a reduced sentence and probation. And after that,
Wow.
the children sued him for 2 of the 4 children for half of their mother's estate, saying that he wrongfully inherited it. And we had a trial on that. And
Wow.
and so in that situation, the court ruled that it wasn't a murder statute, so there wasn't an immediate presumption that they were entitled to it. At that time, and this has been a number of years ago, it was not clear that manslaughter would trigger that, because that's a different elements, and so they could maintain the civil suit, but ultimately they didn't prevail on it, and one of the issues was whether or not the altercation between the 2 spouses that ultimately resulted in the spouse passing away, whether that death was caused as a result of the altercation, or was it as a result of natural causes.
Oh, no.
And so it was a battle of autopsy experts.
So there was no gun, no weapon or anything?
No,
Oh.
no. And we had a very, very fine expert who actually wrote and had a bestseller book published at the time called Autopsy, and that book was the basis of the TV series Quincy that you may or may not remember that was on.
Sure.
He was a very, very compelling witness, and he had reviewed all the photographs of the autopsy, and he had an opinion that the lady's death was due to natural causes, not because of any blunt trauma and a physical altercation. And the medical examiner who had testified at the murder trial testified to the opposite, but then several years later when the civil case went to trial, he said that he had restudied everything and he thought that he was erroneous in his first testimony, and he changed his testimony.
Oh, no.
It's as close to Perry Mason as I have personally experienced in 41 years of practicing law. So anyway, that was kind of an amazing little tidbit.
What a horrible thing to go through, though, the whole thing. The phone lines are open. I want to encourage you, if you want to call, you got about 2 minutes to ask John a question. You'll get a short answer, but at least you'll get some answer. 622-9622. So if somebody we love is in an accident.
It's been said, let me interrupt you, it's been said that I'm incapable of giving a short answer, but I'll do my best.
Well, then they have to call you at your office. So if somebody's in an accident, somebody you love, and let's say he or she is in a coma or dies, let me go to the phone because I see the phone ringing. So I was just going to ask you if you could sue the family of the person who was, who caused the accident.
Let's talk about that next week.
All right. You do have a phone call. Good morning. You're on the air with John.
Hey, John. This is Mark, the former Miami policeman, calling in. I love to hear your voice. I know you're very knowledgeable for them myself, John. I know just the Ferguson case. I know you can't be specific, and we all have cursory knowledge. But my training, 6 months at the Miami Academy in Dade County, and also guarding U.S. embassies, I was never trained legally to be able to shoot an unarmed citizen of the United States nor an unarmed combatant in combat. I'm wondering, John, if with your 41 years, could you add anything to it? And I'll hang up and listen. We appreciate your community devotion.
Well, that whole thing is just a horrific tragedy, and we need, our country needs to find a solution to a lot of issues that are way beyond what I can do in 30 seconds. That would be a great topic to address, and I don't have any personal knowledge of it, but I think one good solution that would benefit law enforcement officers as much as anybody would be the incorporation of some type of body cameras. I know in my practice we've gone to where the patrol vehicles had no video cameras in them to where now I think almost every patrol vehicle has a video camera, and it has increased the administration of justice tremendously, because the old cliche, a picture is worth 1,000 words, is very, very true.
Yeah, absolutely. John, we're absolutely out of time. Also, what's your phone number?
Let's remember and talk about those next week.
Okay.
Again, the number is 352-547-4292. Our toll-free number is 855-534-2565. I'm sorry we ran out of time on those two topics because they deserve more than a 2-minute blurb.
So we'll kind of put them on hold and bring it back next week. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody calling.
We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
As from 16 major car makers could have defective airbags.
Fox Radio's Jeff Manasso. U.S. companies hiring at a solid pace, adding 208,000 jobs last month, according to payroll processor ADP, while U.S. services firms